The end of the NHL season is fast approaching, so it's time to look at which teams are making the playoffs and what the potential matchups could be in our latest edition of NHL Power Rankings. Here we go. We're going to start at the bottom once again with 4 teams in the darkness, including the Sharks, Blackhawks, Flyers, and Predators. 2 of these teams have already been eliminated from the playoffs, in the Sharks and Blackhawks. The Flyers and Predators are still alive, technically, but they're very close to being in the casket. Last week was not great, in particular for Philly. They had a rough schedule going up against Washington and Dallas, but then they lost 7-4 to the Chicago Blackhawks, and things are really starting to boil over for the Flyers, who have had a decently successful year given expectations, but now John Tortorella is lashing out a little bit in the media. And despite the bright spot that is Matvei Michkov, I don't really see the Flyers really being that much improved next year unless they make some major changes in the offseason. Up one tier, we have the garbage tier. They're at least not in the darkness, but they're all pretty awful and not making the playoffs. Boston Bruins, Buffalo Sabres, Anaheim Ducks, Pittsburgh Penguins, and Seattle Kraken. And boy, oh boy, were the Boston Bruins bad this week. In addition to getting drubbed by the Vegas Golden Knights and LA Kings, they had the indignity of losing to the San Jose Sharks of all teams. They're 3 games under 500, their chances of making the playoffs are basically dead, and this once proud franchise is going into an offseason with a ton of questions. But let's move past all these terrible teams and go up to the interesting ones, starting with the Chaos Goblins, the 3 teams that I think are actually really bad, but they're fun to watch and they could easily make the playoffs. The Columbus Blue Jackets, Calgary Flames, and the Montreal Canadiens. Yes, that's right, Habs fans. I'm officially putting in the Chaos Goblins tier. There's a third one now. But of these 3 teams, the one that I want to focus on right now is the Calgary Flames, who had a great week last week. On an East Coast swing, they got 3 straight wins over teams who are all theoretically in the playoff picture, the Rangers, Devils, and Islanders. And as my babies, my original Chaos Flame Goblins, they are currently sitting 4 points outside of the final wildcard spot, although they do have 3 games in hand on the St. Louis Blues, who are in front of them. So the Flames still very much in it, and they just pulled off an overtime win last night, which is not reflected in this current tier list. Next tier up, we have the fringe playoff teams. This includes the Red Wings, Canucks, Utah Hockey Club, Rangers, Islanders, and St. Louis Blues, who were the best team of the week, having gone 4-0 against an admittedly quite weak schedule, but they beat the brakes off the Predators twice, the Blackhawks, and then took a win over the Vancouver Canucks in overtime. And like I said, they are currently sitting in the number 2 wildcard spot. They have a very clear path towards the playoffs, but they're not in the playoffs yet, not like the teams that are above them, which I consider to be the solid playoff teams, the Devils, Senators, and Wild. And as noted, it was not a good week for the New Jersey Devils, whose injury luck has started to catch up to them. 0-3, including losses to 2 Western Conference teams in the Flames and Canucks, and a loss to the Ottawa Senators. Luckily though, the Devils' strong start to the season has them in 3rd place in the Metro, clear of the wildcard spots, and 7 points ahead of the New York Islanders with 10 games to go, although the Islanders actually do have 2 games in hand. Having said that though, it's very unlikely that they will be able to catch the New Jersey Devils. They're probably going to be more focused on making the wildcard spot, so I think the Devils are going to make the playoffs, even if they're going to be one of the easier teams there. Now, one tier up, I have 2 teams that I consider to be on possible fraud watch, those being the Kings and the Vegas Golden Knights. And now both of these teams are firmly in the playoffs. They will both easily make it, and in fact, the Vegas Golden Knights are going to win their division. But these 2 teams have the exact same problem. I don't know if you can trust them to win on the road. The Kings actually have a losing record on the road, and the Vegas Golden Knights are only 3 games over 500 on the road. Both of these teams are absolute home warriors, and for the Vegas Golden Knights, that's going to be fine because they'll probably have home ice advantage throughout the playoffs until they face the Winnipeg Jets, perhaps in the Western Conference Finals. After the first round, the LA Kings will have a rough go of it if they can't figure out how to win consistently on the road. So it's not that these teams are not good, it's just that I don't know if I can trust them to make a deep playoff run. But for Vegas, it was a very good week. They beat Boston and Detroit, which was expected, but also Tampa Bay, a pretty tough team. All games at home though. And now we get to the final 2 tiers, the Cup contenders and the elites. And in the Cup contenders, we have 6 teams who I think could win the Cup but are not the early favorites right now, those being the Leafs, Lightning, Oilers, Panthers, Hurricanes, and Avalanche. It wouldn't surprise me if any of them go on deep runs, but I don't think they're quite as good as the 3 teams in the elite tier right now, the Capitals, Dallas Stars, and Winnipeg Jets.